A very warm afternoon to everybody, especially the grade 8 and 9. For today's edition of the revision video, we are looking at cell theory. Okay, so the cell theory consists of three statements which state that cells are the basic structure unit in living organisms, and the second one states that all organisms are made up of at least one cell. Okay, whereas by the ones that are made up of one cell are called unicellular and the others are called multicellular. And the third theory states that all cells develop from pre-existing cells. Okay, so a pre-existing cell will divide into other cells or will produce the other cells. Okay, so there are two types of cell where we have the eukaryotic and the prokaryotic. Okay, so example of an eukaryotic, we have the plant cell and an animal cell, while as for the prokaryotic we have a bacterial cell. Okay, so the difference between the two is the presence of a well-defined nucleus. Okay, so the eukaryotic cells have a well-defined nucleus while the prokaryotic cells only have a strand of DNA. Okay, so let's start with the eukaryotic cells. Okay, as I said earlier, the example of eukaryotic cells, we have a normal plant cell and an animal cell. Okay, so for eukaryotic cells, as I said earlier, we have plant cells and animal cell. Okay, so these eukaryotic cells differ from the prokaryotic cell in the sense that they have a well-defined nucleus and they have membrane-bound organelles like the vacuole, the mitochondria, Golgi body, etc. Okay, so these two cells are surrounded by a membrane and they have a nucleus. Okay, that's the only difference between an eukaryotic and prokaryotic cell. Not only, but one of the differences between a prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. Okay, so eukaryotic cells have nucleus which contains the hereditary information. By hereditary we mean the genetic information which consists of the RNA or the DNA. And eukaryotic cells also consist of a cytoplasm which is enclosed by a cell membrane. Okay, and they have a number of membrane-bound organelles. As I said earlier, organelles are structures which are found inside the cell. Let's look at the prokaryotic cell. Okay, the example of a prokaryotic cell, we can have a bacteria. Okay, so a bacteria has a strand of DNA which is also surrounded by a membrane. Okay, and it has a flagella which they use to swim, or you can say for movement. So a prokaryotic cells have no nucleus, they have a strand of DNA or RNA. Okay, so they consist of the cytoplasm which is also enclosed by a cell membrane and sometimes a cell wall. Okay, and they have no membrane bound organelles. For example, they have no mitochondria, ribosomes, etc. They have a flagella which they use for movement. That's a prokaryotic cells. Okay, so by this we know that the prokaryotic cells differ in the sense that they have no nucleus, while the eukaryotic cells have a nucleus. They also differ because now the prokaryotic cells, they have a flagella which they use for movement, while eukaryotic cells don't have a flagella. Let's look at the structures found inside the cell, or in short, organelles. Okay, so the definition of an organelle is a tiny cellular structure that performs specific functions within the cell. Okay, for example of organelles, we have the nucleus, the cytoplasm, we have the lysosome, the centrioles, and mitochondria. Let's start with the cell membrane. Okay, so what are the functions of the cell membrane? Okay, the function of the cell membrane is to control what enters and leaves the cell. Okay, the cell membrane acts as a net. Okay, and it is said to be partially permeable because it only allows some substances to pass through while it blocks out other substances. Okay, so the cell membrane is made up of a double layer of phospholipid, or sometimes it's called a phospholipid bilayer. Okay, it contains protein molecules that sometimes help to transport other substances when the gradient differs. Okay, especially during active transport. Okay, they make use of protein molecules which will move substances across this membrane. Let's look at the cell wall. Okay, the cell wall seem to have same function as the cell membrane, but this one is now said to be fully permeable while the cell membrane is partially permeable. Okay, so the main function of the cell wall, it is made up of cellular and chitin, which acts as tough substances to give shape to the cell, and sometimes it also helps the cell not to burst, especially during the intake of water during osmosis. Okay, The mitochondria. The mitochondria, you can refer to it as a powerhouse because it's one of the organelles where respiration takes place, and it's the source of energy. Okay, the source of energy. This is where energy is produced inside the cell. In order for your cell to perform other functions, you need energy, and the energy is produced inside the mitochondria. Okay, so an organelle found in the large numbers in most cells in which the biochemical process of respiration and energy production occurs. That's the function of the mitochondria. So it is a double membrane, the inner part being folded inwards to form layers of crystal. Okay, let's look at the vacuole. Okay, the vacuole is a very uh, important structure because it helps also to regulate the osmotic pressure of a cell. Okay, so it's a membrane bound organelle that contains water based solutions of sugar, protein, pigments, and enzymes. The nucleus, one of the most important organelles inside the cell. Okay, so the nucleus is a membrane bound organelle that contains genetic material, DNA, of most eukaryotic organisms. The function of the nucleus, it controls all cellular activities. The chloroplast. The chloroplast is mainly found in green plants or sometimes even in photosynthetic bacteria or algae. And the chloroplasts are organisms that conduct photosynthesis, where the photosynthetic pigment chlorophyll captures the energy from the sun to convert it into food or glucose, and it is stored in energy storage molecules. That's the chloroplast. So the main function of the chloroplast is to produce food for the plant. So for your homework questions, number one, you have outlined the three major tenets of cell theory. I hope you guys capture those ones. So if you did not, please just rewatch the video again. I know you will know these ones. Okay. Video. I have left some questions for you guys. Please try and answer them and have a good day. Stay safe.